Welcome to the Udamia Hello podcast. I am RJ, joined by Mike and Andy. Welcome, guys. How are you?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Doing great.
Nice. We are here tonight, diving back into that's the wrong picture. Diving back into wrestling. Three dads, one podcast. You didn't ask for it, but we're here anyway, talking about the top WrestleMania of all time. If you are a wrestling fan from the 90s, 2000s, today, or not at all, you should like this podcast because we're on it, and we're hilarious. And on top of that, wrestling is fun. Wrestling has been a part of my life for 30 years, a little less than that probably. I'm not that old. But it's been a whirlwind of emotions, and whether you watched wrestling for a couple of years in the 90s or for the entire length of your life, you will be smartened up by this podcast today.
We're gonna smarten them up.
Maybe.
No kayfabe, bro.
How you doing, bro? So hey, how's everything going, guys?
Good. It's been crazy couple of weeks, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, Mike has become our unofficial third host of the show. You've been on the show more than anyone else, so congrats.
Yeah.
Including the both of you. This is now my podcast.
Because we can't remember how many podcasts we've done. Well, this is podcast number...
It's number 17.
No, 17. You finally kept track. All right, fantastic.
I did. It's number 17, top WrestleMania of all time. We are making this simpler. So we are doing the top 8 today because we want to dive a little bit more into each WrestleMania because they're big. I mean, back in the day, there were 2 hours. Now they're 19 hours. They're 3 days long. So we're going to talk about just 8 of them today. And some of them we'll talk about a little bit more than others. But we have everything spanning. I think the earliest WrestleMania we have, we're going to disappoint some people right now. The earliest WrestleMania we have is WrestleMania 10 on the list. So if you were a fan of 9 or below, this isn't for you. We just could not get into 9 or below.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good ones on there, but we only wanted to go with 8. And, maybe prior, mid-90s to, going back, maybe there wasn't so many great matches on the cards, a lot of filler. I think, Mike, you had WrestleMania 3 on your list, which I think would have been a good one. You had Macho Man and Steamboat against each other, and then you had the infamous Hogan versus Andre
versus Giant. Yeah.
Yeah. But besides that, so it was very tough to pick 8 when there's been 30 plus.
Yeah.
And, so.
I had WrestleMania 1 on my list also, but that was based purely on the cultural significance of WrestleMania 1, because that really was what took WWF and elevated their business over any other wrestling company that was around at the time. So, plus not to mention all the celebrities that were there, Mr. T and, you name
Cyndi
names
Lauper.
Everyone. Yeah. Little Richard was there, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Probably.
So if you guys have any questions or comments for us as we're going through this, feel free to leave them for us below in the comments section, just as my wife did, or my daughter. I'm not sure which one, but hi. They are probably logging off now. But thank you guys for joining us today. We're going to go through it. I think we'll start off right away. Here we are. So we're going to talk about each WrestleMania a little bit here. And this is preference only. It's just personal opinion. It's going to be match quality. It's going to be event quality. It's going to be everything down to even maybe the music they used, like just whatever.
A couple of them had Limp Bizkit songs.
A lot had Limp Bizkit songs.
Yeah, like Limp Bizkit was like the official band of
There's one that had 2 Limp Bizkit songs.
Listen, I did.
I'm okay with Limp Bizkit, but there was one song that was playing where I was like, holy Lord, this is garbage. And I was watching like a highlight video and they played it twice over. And I thought I was like in a fever dream at one point. And I was like, what's going on? And Tina literally got up and walked away because she's like, what are you listening to?
There's some trash songs too. I'm gonna bring up a WrestleMania trash song later, and it's not Limp Bizkit. but we'll talk about that later.
All right.
But we're going to continue with the same brackets. So top 8, randomized brackets, WrestleManias versus WrestleManias. We'll just kind of introduce the WrestleManias as a whole. And then whatever WrestleMania is out, we will talk a little bit about why we liked it, because it still made our top 8. So there was things we liked about it, things we didn't like about it, but it made the list. So here are our top 8 WrestleManias, or at least the first 2. Here it is. We have WrestleMania 12 versus WrestleMania 13, year after year. So let's start first with WrestleMania 12. That took place March 31st, 1996, over at the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim, California. Just to give a quick overview, this was the one with the 60-minute Iron Man match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. And also, I guess the other thing on that card would have been the Undertaker and Diesel in their singles match. But this was known because it was the first free-for-all. Do you guys remember the free-for-alls on the WrestleManias or on the pay-per-views? A free-for-all was the 30-minute free portion of the pay-per-view that was on the cable channel.
That's right.
And you used to see the channels coming up telling you what's on TV, and then they would have that 30-minute free-for-all hosted by Sonny or Todd Pettengill. And you would get to see the opener, the opener match, which for this one, by the way, was the Body Donnas and the Godwins. So fun stuff. But the other one is WrestleMania 13, which took place the following year in 1997 at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois, one of my favorite wrestling cities. And that one was known for Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin in a submission match, and the Undertaker and Psycho Sid for the WWF Heavyweight Championship. So let's get right to the voting, guys. You've seen the matches. You've seen the pay-per-views. What do you think?
I'll let you go first, Mike.
Oh, really? Okay. This is actually a really tough decision. I mean, they're all going to be tough decisions because they're all really good events. But it's a toss up here. I mean, you had WrestleMania 12. You had the 60-minute Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. We had the 6-man tag match with the Bulldog, Owen Hart,
Vader.
Yeah, Vader. And then you had Ultimate Warrior versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley at 12. But then when we're looking at 13, even though I wasn't a huge fan of the main event with Undertaker and Psycho Sid, we had the submission match with Hart versus Austin and Ken Shamrock as the guest ref, which is a fantastic match. It's just hard to really pick between these two, but I think my heart says 12, just based on the 60-minute Iron Man match, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. 13 has my favorite match of all time, Steve Austin and Bret Hart. However, some things that really pushed it for me was Stone Cold and Savio Vega was a sleeper. It's such a good match. Savio Vega is so good back in the 90s. That dude just made a return a couple years ago, I think, to Impact. Or was it MLW, right? Yeah. And he looks the same. He's little Savio Vega. But so that, and then the other thing was, like you said, Undertaker and Sid was a terrible match. But then Undertaker and Diesel at this one was another big match, and it was pretty good. It was not a terrible match by any stretch. So I'm going to go with 12.
This was a toss up for me. I could have gone either way. So I'll just disagree to just throw some spice in there. I would have said 13. So let's talk about 13. The reason why I would have went with it is because not so much of the match quality, because I think the only real match that had quality at that event was Bret versus Austin, which is, like you said, RJ, before we talked, this is one of your favorite matches of all time. A lot of people agree with you. This was really the turning point into the Attitude Era. This is where Austin became that bona fide face of the company, and it kind of pushed Bret towards the heel of the company. And it was a real big turning point for WWF and put them into a whole different stratosphere. No, Trish Stratus reference. Stratosphere of
Stratified.
Of wrestling. So I would have went with that just because of the impact that it made on the business. Though I think 12 had an overall better card. And you also talked about Sid versus Taker. I don't know what else you would have expected out of that match.
Sid and Michaels had an amazing match twice.
Yeah, but Sid against a smaller guy,
that's true,
is usually bet because he'll just murder the person.
Yeah, he just stomps him. Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong; it's not a horrendous match by any means.
No, but it's not like a 5-star.
No, it's probably not even a 3-star. But it was entertaining. But as you said, 12 is moving on. So let's talk a little bit more about 13. 13 going into it. If you guys remember, I watched wrestling. This was like the height of my wrestling. There was a Final Four in February between Taker, Bret, Sid, and Vader. Bret ended up winning that and lost the title the very next day. And then Taker becomes the number one contender. So it was a big mess going into WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels was supposed to be involved, but he lost his smile a month before. And he's gone for a couple of months, even though he shows up to the pay-per-view and dances all over the place like nothing's wrong. But you have Sid and Taker, and now you have Bret and Austin, and that's kind of how that's set up. But this is also The Rock's debut in WrestleMania.
Yep.
Even though not a great match against the Sultan for me, I loved seeing his dad join in the match. And the dude had this punch where he was like, before he punched, he would just go like this, and then punch. It was so fun. I have a whole lot more to say, but what do you guys think about 13?
Yeah, this was this had another fun match too with Ahmed Johnson, LOD, in the Chicago street fight against Nation of Domination.
Yeah, that was actually a good fight.
Yeah, nothing memorable, like too memorable, but it was a good fight. I think What Culture, I was watching one of their highlights and they were talking about it and they were like, yeah, it was kind of like an ECW type brawl without the blood. There's some good moments.
Yeah.
I think there was a big, about backstage basically. So they gave Ahmed the LOD.
They gave him the pads.
Yeah. And then Animal said that he stole them afterwards. And then Ahmed said, no, Hawk gave them to me, like as a tribute. So it was a big debacle. And Ken Shamrock was the ref in the main event as well. Ken Shamrock actually turned down an IWGP heavyweight title shot to go to WWF and ref. So he was supposed to go to New Japan. He was supposed to wrestle the champion, Shinya Hashimoto. And he was basically like, I'll go as long as I'm not under contract. And Vince scooped him up before that.
Wow.
So that could have been a whole different thing for Shamrock. I mean, he's been all over the place, but that would have been really interesting to kind of see how that played out. But
yeah,
Bret
and Austin, I can't say enough about. Like, that match is almost perfect in my eyes. Just the storytelling, the fact that Bret and Austin, the way they fight each other is so realistic to me. The chair shots in that match were ridiculous. The blade job was over the top. And just
Austin didn't want to do.
I didn't know that. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
He changed his mind during the match. I guess Bret was saying, like, there's parts where Austin's like, do you still want to do this? Like, should we do it? Because Bret was actually the one who was blading him. And at that point, there was a no blood policy, even though I guess Bret had done it a pay-per-view or two prior to that and got away with it. I guess he did it in a way where Vince didn't know it was a blade job. So they did it. I guess Bret was like, no, we got to do it. And I mean, that picture is everywhere. That was on their VHS release. That is, like, when people talk about Austin, like, besides the double middle finger, like, that's what they remember, is that blood, running down his face into his teeth. That was the memorable thing of the night and probably of his career.
Yeah, I mean, that was honestly the highlight of the whole event. I mean, just looking back at the card, like, that's what you remember. You even just said it, like, you don't remember too much else about this event, but you keep coming back to that, and it's a legendary match. Ahmed Johnson with the Legion of Doom isn't exactly making any headlines anymore.
Dude, you got to watch Ahmed Johnson before he went to WWF. He was doing like Sabu type stuff. He was doing moonsaults and like diving over the top rope, like completely reckless. But man, it was anything. There's some clips online.
I heard
a Taker dive like over the top rope. Can you imagine like you're going against Ahmed Johnson? He's like, I'm gonna do a dive on you over the top. He's just like, you're dead.
There was a podcast I was listening to where I think it was Bruce Pritchard, and he was talking about when Ahmed came out and he had the elbow pads and knee pads below his knees or above them, and then like his elbow pads were above or below, and everybody was looking at him like, do you know how those work? Like, that's not how you wear those. And everybody backstage thought it was the stupidest looking thing.
Flair does that all the time. He always puts his knee pads on his shins. Drives me crazy. I'm like, they're not shin pads. Like, go get some soccer pads if your shins are bothering you.
Well, he's an old man and his pants are falling down, so why not everything else?
But he should have got the rock stirrups on his boots, to hold them up.
All right, so WrestleMania 13 is out. It was a memorable one. Also, not to forget that China bear hugging Marlena is one of the greatest sights ever. If you haven't seen it, just go look at it.
The Triple H Goldust
destroys her. Yes. But next up, we have WrestleMania 22 versus WrestleMania 10. WrestleMania 22 was actually in 2006. I wasn't actively watching wrestling, but I did watch all of the WrestleManias. This was from the Allstate Arena in Chicago again. This is known for having the second Money in the Bank match, Edge and Foley in the hardcore match there. And then Shawn and Vince was another one, and Triple H and Cena. WrestleMania 10, very popular. Most people know this one, but this is from Madison Square Garden in New York in 1994. This is known for the WWF title matches with Yokozuna, Lex Luger, Bret Hart, and also Shawn and Razor's ladder match. So let's just get down to it. WrestleMania 10 or WrestleMania 22?
I'm going with 10.
Mike? I'll make it easy for you. I'm going to go with 10 too. So.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to say 10. 22 was great. You had a lot of great matches. Some of the earlier matches, maybe not so much, but the John Cena Triple H match was, a pretty good close up to the show. The Shawn Michaels, Mr. McMahon match, no holds barred for, an 18-minute match, just a true test of endurance and, how much Shawn Michaels,
coming out.
You what?
That's my thing.
Oh yeah.
How much Shawn Michaels adds to any match. It doesn't matter who he's wrestling. The amount of skill and the way he can really make anybody look good. Not, because let's be honest, Vince McMahon isn't exactly the best wrestler around. He owns the company. He can put himself in any match he wants to. But I feel like he does it when it's going to make an impact. But to put himself up against one of the biggest superstars that he has ever had. Basically, yeah, he did. Yeah.
But he was partnered with Shawn Michaels.
But to let Shawn Michaels beat the ever-living crap out of him, really says a lot about how he really has no shame and how he'll really do anything for the business. But some of the other matches on there, the Money in the Bank match was awesome. The Money in the Bank ladder match with Van Dam, Lashley, Finlay, Matt Hardy, the Ric Flair match I was talking about earlier. Yeah.
The Ric Flair.
Not to mention that Ric Flair, I think, was like, almost 60 years old at the time, getting suplexed off the top of a ladder. Like, just the absurdity of what that actually is.
The last 40 years.
I agree. I think WrestleMania 22 was really good. That, again, Chicago crowd makes it. It was very, very good. Here is the song, though. Peter Gabriel's Big Time. It was the worst WrestleMania song of all time. If you haven't heard that, Peter Gabriel's Big Time. They played that for like 9 months before this. every Monday for Raw, and I hated it. But anyways, yeah, it was the second Money in the Bank match. It was a good one. Not my favorite. I think the first one was better, but it was really cool that RVD won. I think it was kind of a surprise, at least for me. Hardy did a side effect onto Finlay off the ladder, which was ridiculous.
That was awesome.
This is the first WrestleMania that had a really good women's match in it. It was Trish and Mickey. Great story, good match. They got a little bit more time than you normally would. And I agree, Shawn and Vince was fun. It's something you wanted to see. You know, it was not going to be a 5-star wrestling match, but it was entertaining. That elbow spot through the table where he DX chopped and then, did the elbow through the table was awesome. I think this is also the one where Cena took the reins and started this. Cena Nation started after this, and everybody was hot when Cena won against Triple H. I don't think anyone was expecting that, so that was a kind of a huge deal. I've noticed in researching WrestleMania, Triple H has lost a lot. Yeah, everybody blames that guy for being like, I'm going to go over on everybody, but that dude lost more than he won at WrestleMania. He's always willing to do business, so I thought that was kind of cool.
He puts a lot of people over, but he is, his character is menacing. So when his character loses, it means something,
Yeah.
We've talked about some good matches there, but we've probably haven't talked about the best matches on there.
Are we talking about the hardcore match?
I think he's talking about the terrible matches. That's what he wants to do.
Okay.
No. Before I get to the best match, let me regroup here. Talk about Trish and Mickey, one of the best women's matches on a WrestleMania card. Mickey got herself in some deep doo-doo in this match because I don't want to get political on here, but she grabbed Trish in a spot where he trumped her. Yeah, she trumped her. Yeah, she did that, and then made a gesture with her fingers.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
That had to be cut from everything. So apparently she went backstage and Vince of all people, lost his stuff on her.
You crossed the line.
You crossed the line. I'm going to go out there and beat God.
It's a family-friendly show. Family-friendly.
Yeah, I'm going to go get my wife in a wheelchair and make out with another girl while she barks like a dog.
This was after the intergender handicap match, by the way, with the Boogeyman and Sharmell.
Yeah. All right. So that was on there. Rey Mysterio won the championship.
Mm-hmm.
They actually cut that match. It was supposed to be 18 minutes long. They cut it down to 9 because other matches went over. And Vince didn't want to put the title on Rey. Everybody backstage was pushing for Rey to be this underdog champion, and Vince wanted the bigger guys to be their champion.
Yeah, it was Orton and Angle, right, in a triple threat.
Yeah. But they had a lot of people pushing for Rey. They finally convinced him, and he ended up having a very short title reign. But it was a cool moment to see. This was right after maybe like a year or so after Eddie Guerrero had passed away. So they wanted to, kind of have this moment for Rey. So that was pretty cool. And seeing somebody who's my size or smaller winning the championship in a land of giants is pretty cool. And then the match of the night was Mick Foley and Edge in the hardcore match. Thumbtacks, barbed wire bats, then the flaming table, which Edge, that was Edge's idea. So Edge spears Foley through the flaming table. Just a crazy moment, to see Edge kind of go into Foley's realm there of hardcore and do it really well was terrific. I mean, I love that match. But then you had, Boogeyman versus Booker T and Sharmell, which was a 4-minute match. I guess Boogeyman was actually injured. So instead of just cutting the match completely, which would have
made more sense.
Yeah, let's cut that match and put 4 extra minutes into Randy Orton, Kurt Angle, and Rey Mysterio. That makes sense to me. Maybe not to everybody else. And then Undertaker versus Mark Henry in a casket match. I actually liked Mark Henry a lot during this time. He was this is really when he started doing that World's Strongest Man stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, he was rolling up frying pans, right? When he was.
Yeah, he was doing cool stuff. I'm a strong man. Why don't you do some strongman stuff? Yeah, that's legit. but how much can you do in a casket match? But
yeah,
I think it was a great card, but
I don't know that they didn't open the show with anything great. Big Show and Kane versus Carlito and Chris Masters. Like that's, I love Chris Masters, but that is not
spit in the face of people.
That, a 6-minute tag match for the World Tag Team Championship.
Listen,
6 minutes.
We're lucky that it was on the pre-show.
Well, WrestleMania 10 is moving on. We're saying goodbye to WrestleMania 22. Next up, we have a tough one, super tough one. WrestleMania 30 versus WrestleMania 17. WrestleMania X7, WrestleMania 17. Let's talk about it. WrestleMania 30 was in 2014. It is our newest pay-per-view to make the top 8. So there is nothing after 30, even though I do like a lot about the last 5 years. But
There's nothing
the Boneyard match. Hello. Anyways, April 2014, Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. It was the first WWE event that was simultaneously broadcast on pay-per-view and the new WWE Network. That is known for the Yes Movement. Pretty much that's it. And also the huge defeat of The Undertaker against Brock Lesnar. If you're 6 years too late. WrestleMania X7 was in 2001, and that was in Houston, Texas. And this is right after the WCW buyout. It happened. The major one on this card was the TLC match and Stone Cold and The Rock. So let's have at it. WrestleMania X7 or WrestleMania 30?
I'm gonna say X7.
I am going to agree with you.
And I'm going to agree with you too. So let's talk about WrestleMania 30 because it was a good one. I did like it. I saw it live at Andy's house, I think. And it was a really good one. It was super long. But yeah, let's talk about it.
Card was stacked. I mean, the WrestleMania 30 was nothing to sneeze at. Yeah, at two. You had some.
I've not heard this. Is this a Warwick phrase? What is that?
That's not the cough boog is at.
Yeah.
Don't cough those boogeyman.
You're bookending the night with two huge matches. With Daniel Bryan beating Triple H to start the night, to put himself into the championship match at the end of the night versus Batista and Randy Orton in a triple threat match. Now, as the closing match, unfortunately, a lot of interference from Triple H, and I kind of feel like Orton and Batista carried the match. And part of the whole story, Bryan had a
Injury.
26-minute match at the beginning of the night. Yeah, he was already injured, but it was still a good match to watch because you had Batista and Orton really just going for it, for the title, knowing that Daniel Bryan was injured. But then you had the Triple H interference. Then you had Daniel Bryan fighting back, then getting tag team power bombed through a table, put onto a stretcher, jumps off the stretcher, comes back into the match, only to win the whole thing. And you can't really say that was a bad way to open and close the night. And then you had all these matches in the middle. There's tons of matches, but I mean, looking at the highlights, and I don't want to keep talking too much here, so you guys can, say whatever. But the 6-man tag match was amazing. The Lesnar Undertaker match was absolutely phenomenal. Knowing that it was going to be the first time the Undertaker was going to lose at a WrestleMania in 20
like this.
20 some odd years. But I feel like the lows of this night were the lowest, kind of like how RJ makes me feel right now.
That was my Taker guy
okay.
thing.
Me Me and RJ would always say like, man, we should get front row tickets because they would always go to the crowd and they'd always have like ridiculous faces. So we wanted to be like, like an armbar. Someone does this, you just start throwing up.
So there's a ton about this. I want to point out they opened the show with Hogan being advertised, and then Austin and The Rock show up. Huge intro. I think it was one of the most epic openers for non-wrestling that I've seen in WrestleMania history. Hogan messing up the Silverdome line, which was hilarious because both The Rock and Austin made fun of him during the promo. So that was awesome. I love seeing the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn during this time. They were back for a short stint as tag champions. They're so entertaining. Some of my favorite tag teams. And it was them versus The Shield. And it was actually a pretty good match. They're a little past their prime, but it was still fun seeing them out there, and the right people won. I also thought, and I saw this live with Andy, we were super happy at the time to see Cesaro win the Battle Royal, even though they didn't do anything with him. But it was still cool. It was his moment. It was really cool. And
Kofi had that great spot too, where he was thrown over the turnbuckle, but his feet hit the stairs and his feet never touched the ground. That was a great spot.
Yeah, I have to admit, like Bryan winning at the end, both matches. First off, Bryan had 2 4-star matches. Most people are rating those 4 stars or higher. He wrestled twice, almost an hour combined. And it was he was really, really impressive. I'm not a Batista or a Randy Orton fan, and I thought that match was great. The only other thing I would say on this one is, the Taker and Brock. Sadly, Taker got a concussion, I think minutes into this match. And so the match wasn't as great as it could have been, but that swerve at the end with him losing was, whether you agree with it or not, was a shock. It was probably one of the first times in a long time that WWE pulled something that we didn't see coming. So I thought that was really good.
The ref didn't even know. They didn't tell the ref to finish either.
Oh, wow.
So when he counted the 3, he legit thought that he screwed up. And he was like, I just messed up like one of the biggest matches of like the year. And then they showed like the 21-1 on the screen. He was like, oh Jesus, like thank God. He thought he was like in deep crap.
Anything you want to add to that, Andy?
Yeah, this had you talked about pretty much all the moments I want to talk about, but there was also John Cena versus Bray Wyatt. Mm-hmm. Cena went over. Probably a bad call. I think Bray Wyatt kind of had a lot of these when he should have won, especially early on when he was hot. He was like he was the top guy. Like, and they should have put the belt on him way before they ever did. This was actually the first time in 11 years where Cena did not have the belt at a WrestleMania, either in the title match or something like that. So this was kind of phasing Cena out of that title picture. A lot of the younger guys are going over. The Shield, Cesaro, Daniel Bryan. And this was the fans talking as well. This was like the fans moment. Much like they did with Kofi Mania years after, Daniel Bryan was the first one because in the Rumble when he got tossed out, they couldn't, like, the whole Rumble was just booing. Didn't matter if they were fan favorites or whatever. Everybody was getting booed at that point. I think it was Batista that won, and the fans were just like, "No, we don't want this. We want Daniel Bryan." And they actually listened for once. And they were like, all right, well, I guess we got to get him in the title picture somehow. So go out there and beat Triple H. And I guess originally it was supposed to be Triple H and CM Punk. And this is when CM Punk was like, no, I'm leaving. And I guess they were like, well, why don't you face Triple H at WrestleMania and you're going to go over? And CM Punk was like, really? No. And
no.
He kind of stuck to them.
Yeah, certainly didn't do himself any favors on his way out. That's for sure.
I don't think he cares.
Yeah, no.
WrestleMania X7 is moving on. 30 is gone. So next up, our last one in the top 8 here, we have WrestleMania 21, which happened back in 2005 at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. WrestleMania goes Hollywood. That one is known for Cena and Layfield and Batista and Triple H. And then you have WrestleMania 19, which happened in 2003 in the Safeco Field in Seattle, Washington. This one is known for Hulk Hogan and Mr. McMahon in a street fight, The Rock and Stone Cold, and Brock and Kurt Angle. So, what do you guys got?
19 all the way.
Man, this one is a little tough for me. 21's really good too, but I mean, you have the Money in the Bank, you have Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels.
I'm gonna go
with 19 as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say 19, but I was waiting to hear what you were gonna say.
It's by far the better card, by far the better matches. Like, 21 wasn't all bad. 21 had Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero. Anytime you put those two together, you're gonna get something good.
Right.
First Money in the Bank ladder match. Taker versus Orton. This was kind of like Orton's push into like, I would say this was a big push, but to get a match against Taker is pretty big.
Yeah.
This is like when they first kind of started like mentioning like, oh, Taker has a streak, so it started like meaning something a little bit more. But I think the big thing on this match was Michaels versus Angle.
Yeah, definitely the match of the night.
Yeah, I think
like hands down.
Possibly one of the greatest matches of history in WrestleMania for sure.
Yeah, but I will say this: mixed with that good stuff, you had Cena versus JBL, Triple H versus Batista. Like, you can't follow Michaels versus Angle. That should have been the main event.
No, they did. They did follow it. It was a 1-minute sumo match with the Big Show versus Akibono.
Yeah. I met Akibono actually at a Dragon Gate USA match. He was signing autographs. Really nice dude. I got his autograph and picture somewhere. Actually, on Facebook, you can find me and Akibono.
Well, WrestleMania 21 was important because this was the first WrestleMania. It was a new era for WWE again with no Austin, no Rock, no Lesnar. You had names like Cena, Batista, Orton, and Edge that were in bigger matches here. Mysterio and Eddie had that solid opener. Ray's son would get involved later in the year with the custody of Dominic. And Eddie's final WrestleMania, sadly, is this one as well. He would die later this year as well. However, first Money in the Bank, which was a great match, probably my favorite of the two we've talked about so far. 5 out of 6 of those guys would go on later to win the world title. The only one who didn't was Shelton Benjamin, which we could argue he was the star of the match in this match anyway, and in any other ones he's been in afterwards. But yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. We got some good matches in here. We got some bad ones. Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. I'll bring up the fact that, Taker and Orton, I thought was a really solid match. Orton, I'm not a huge fan of, but whenever Taker is in there with somebody, it usually is a pretty good match if you've got two good guys in there. And then Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels for me, probably one of my favorite matches of all time. It's definitely a 5-star match for me. I just watched recently a documentary on that match where this was the one where Kurt Angle started singing the "I'm a Sexy Boy" in a promo prior to this with Shawn Michaels' old valet. She came back for it. I can't remember her name, but she came back, and her and Kurt Angle were singing "I'm a Sexy Boy." Kurt Angle. Sure? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So what do you guys think?
I mean, I already said what I gotta say.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
moving on.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, well, that's it, guys. All right, awesome. And you're right. The later two main event cards kind of duds, John Cena and JBL, even though I do agree with Cena going over JBL. JBL was not that great. And then Batista and Triple H. I hate Batista. So Batista and Triple H would not have been a match I'd look forward to. But anyways, moving on is WrestleMania 19. We're officially in the top 4 for WrestleManias. And we are keeping up for good time here. But here it is. WrestleMania 12 versus WrestleMania 10. Just a quick reminder, WrestleMania 12 was back in 1996, and WrestleMania 10 was 2 years earlier in 94. What do you guys got? I'll tell you already, I'm going with 10.
You going with 10?
I am.
All right. I'll make it easy, and I will agree with you on 10.
All right, Mike, what would you have chosen?
I was leaning towards 10 as well.
All right. So let's talk about 12 then.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this one? So again, if I mentioned it earlier, you guys knew it right away. It was the free-for-all. Was the first. This was the first free-for-all with that happened on the free channel, and that was the Body Donnas versus the Godwins, which I did not know until listening to Bruce Pritchard's podcast that the Body Donnas was Tom Pritchard.
Yeah.
I for some reason did not make that connection.
Tom and Chris Candido.
Yeah, they were a fun group. I don't care. They were good. Godwins were good too. I really liked them. I think didn't they have a slot match with Triple H at some point too?
Yeah, Henry Godwin and Triple H.
Yeah, fun stuff. It wasn't 5-star matches, but it was fun to watch. So this is Steve Austin's WrestleMania debut. This was also the Hollywood Backlot Brawl with the O.J. Simpson footage inserted throughout the night, which was hilarious. If you love homophobic comments, you will love this match. It is filled with them. It does not age well. But if you want to separate that part, it was still a really good match overall, or a fight. I had a lot of fun watching it and cringing, as they said really terrible things. And then for me, Michaels winning the title, super emotional. I think it cements Michaels as the top wrestler probably of all time. That ending sequence, I used to know it by heart. With Vince's commentary, I thought it was epic. Probably one of the best matches in WWE history, if not all time. Some people say it's a little too long. It gets a little dry somewhere in the middle, but I love it. I love every minute of it. So, what do you guys think about it?
I think this is another one of those instances where one match really kind of defined the event with the 60-minute Iron Man match. Mm-hmm. Not to say that other matches on the card weren't worth watching. I think the 6-man tag match was, a decent lineup with Bulldog, Hart, Vader versus Ahmed Johnson, Jake the Snake, and Yokozuna. Just looking at those names, sort of, defines that part of the company's, the generation. But Ultimate Warrior versus Triple H. I believe this was the first time Ultimate Warrior was back for a WrestleMania. Am I wrong in saying that?
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
back after 4 years.
Yeah, and he just squashed Triple H, and I know Ultimate Warrior was this. He sort of transcended the business, right? He besides Hulk Hogan, he was like their next marketing material, right? Yeah. So if you have him coming back after 4 years, why not give him a fight? Why are you going to have him come in and just squash someone? I know it was Triple H. It was Hunter Hearst Helmsley, but
Well, no, but you're right, but that wasn't what he was known for. Ultimate Warrior was always running through guys, quick matches. His intensity is what got him over. But bad call on this one. Triple H had an undefeated streak at this point.
Yeah.
And then you have Ultimate Warrior come in after 4 years, kicks out of the pedigree. What should be one of the most protected moves after it become that. But Triple H didn't want to do that. He had gone and been like, I can't have him kick out of my finisher, and he got overruled. So,
yeah, I mean, it's the Ultimate Warrior, but again, that leads me back to why have him. Just have him show up and grab the top rope and just run around the ring for 4 minutes and just let everyone go nuts. Why does he have to squash someone?
Or he could have did it against a lower card, guy, have somebody come out and been like, I challenge anyone in the back, and then comes out, it would have gotten the same reaction.
Yeah.
Was this the beginning of the punishment though for Triple H due to the other guys leaving?
The Click? I don't know, because I don't know. Diesel was on it might have been. But I thought it happened after. This was after Kevin Nash, Diesel, whatever, and Scott Hall did announce that they were on their way out.
I'm looking up when the curtain call was because he was punished after that, but I don't know if that was before or after this.
This was probably after because Scott Hall was supposed to be on the card.
It was May, so it was 2 months later. Okay,
yeah, because Scott Hall, Razor Ramon was supposed to be on this card and actually got bumped off because he gave his notice, and then he also allegedly failed a drug test, and I don't think it really mattered back then, but they were like, no, go home and you're not getting any WrestleMania payouts either. So he got bumped off the card. And Warrior really, Vince didn't want him back either. Linda had to be the one to convince Vince because Vince and Ultimate Warrior had a very tumultuous relationship at this point. But Linda, I guess, was a big supporter of Ultimate Warrior, and she was able to have them sit down, and they brought him back in. But I think you guys are missing out on the big thing that happened here. Okay, so at this point, WCW was stealing everybody from WWF. Nash is going to be gone, which is interesting that Taker would kick out of his jackknife powerbomb multiple times. I think that was kind of a send-off of, we're going to kill your finisher. So Vince wanted to get back at WCW and bring one of their stars and put them on TV. So they got the biggest one of all. They got Johnny B. Bad, Mark Miro, to show up on there.
I was wondering where you were going with this.
No, he was cool.
Mark Miro was good for a short minute. And he did have a match against Sable in the future. So
yeah, I knew it was his wife. No, I liked Mike Miro too, pulling off shooting star presses and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I used to love him as Johnny B. Bad. I used to get the old wrestling magazines, and he would, basically have this little Richard character.
Well, that's because finally you had someone to root for you that you look like you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, WrestleMania 10 is moving on. WrestleMania 12 is now gone. Now we're up against WrestleMania X7 versus WrestleMania 19. Again, X7 known for the TLC match, Shane versus his dad, and also Stone Cold and The Rock. And then you have WrestleMania 19, which again is known for Rock and Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan and Mr. McMahon, and Brock and Angle. Do you guys have any idea which direction you want to go in?
I kind of don't. I thought I did coming into this, kind of foreshadowing that these two would end up against each other.
I'm going with X7.
I'm gonna agree with you. This is a tough one, but I'm going with X7.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I mean, kind of same as last time. I was kind of leaning towards that. However, we had WrestleMania 19, which was Austin's send-off. Mm-hmm. So again, if we're talking, cultural significance, you have The Rock versus Steve Austin, possibly one of the biggest matches in the history of the company, two of the biggest superstars of the entire company of all time. And the both of them kind of in their own way, dragged the company back up. And to have Austin sent off by The Rock in an amazing match, just riddled with reversals after reversals. I mean, I think we saw the people's elbow like 4 times, and
doing each other's finishers.
Yeah. And I think at one point the ref got stunned. I don't know. I'm sure it happened at some point.
I think I got stunned from it.
Yeah. And then you still had Lesnar versus Angle, which the title changed hands so Angle could get surgery.
He had a broken freaking neck.
Yeah, he had a broken neck and he had bone spurs, and all this crazy stuff, and to know that after the fact, and just still see the kind of matches he put on, and then have Lesnar go over and get the title, in a 20-something minute match was just great to watch. But it's hard to put that up against X7, and we'll talk more about that later, I'm assuming.
Yeah, this was important for two big reasons. This was the first WrestleMania where we were using the WWE name. They got the F out in 2002, which was the phrase they were using. It's also the first WrestleMania with the brand extension in full effect. So that was the roster being divided between Raw and SmackDown. This was Ray's WrestleMania debut.
Did you know that Raw and SmackDown are going to be on the same show?
They're going to be on the same show, both Raw and SMackDown.
That's crazy. Didn't know that.
Inside joke that no one gets, but it's funny to us. Ray's WrestleMania debut against Matt Hardy. If anybody remembers the Matt facts, they were awesome, as was Matt Hardy.
How do you do? I don't think that's right.
Version 1.
Oh, I think I did.
That's right.
Version 1. There's so much to talk about on this. I don't want to take it all away from you, Andy, so I'll let you handle some. But Shawn Michaels and Jericho, probably one of the better matches again in the history of WWE. As you notice, most of mine contain Shawn Michaels or Stone Cold. But in this one, you've got Shawn Michaels and Jericho being up there, Rock and Stone Cold being up there. I'm not a huge fan of Lesnar, but Lesnar and Angle was a great match too. You had a lot of really good 4- and 5-star matches. I would put Shawn and Jericho at a 5-star. I'd put Rock and Stone Cold at a 5-star, and Brock and Kurt were probably a 4-star for me. So you have 2 5-star matches on one card. And there's tons more. However, the thing I don't get, why in the world is the Undertaker fighting Big Show in A-Train with Orlando Jones? Oh, no, Nathan.
No, Nathan Jones. He needed interference from Nathan Jones multiple times.
I hate
it. It was supposed to be a tag match originally. So Nathan Jones was this big dude. I mean, you look at him and you're like, oh, this dude is imposing. Has a star written all over him, like, Vince's dream guy. And then they bring him over and they're like, oh, this guy doesn't know how to wrestle. So
he just kicks people.
Yeah, which is cool, but he couldn't put on a match. Like, they tried working with him and practicing and stuff. And they were like, this isn't going to work. So they actually just made it a handicap match. And with Nathan Jones coming in at the end, doing a couple kicks, and there we go. Yeah, total throwaway match for the Taker. Great women's match: Victoria, Trish, Jazz. This also had a really good Los Guerreros versus Hassan Benjamin versus Rhino Chris Benoit.
Hogan, that was a great match.
Yeah, Hogan versus McMahon. Vince, 2 old men just beating the crap out of each other. It had a Roddy Piper interference. So I was kind of like, whatever.
That was a good match, though. That ended with a bloody Mr. McMahon and a middle finger.
They're both bloodied up, This had the big Lesnar botched shooting star press. So people are like, oh, he can't do the shooting star press. Like, no, go back early in his career when he was in OVW. That was one of his moves, and he did it picture perfect, crisp every single time. But here you are in a match that's 20-30 minutes down the line, and you're beat up, and Angle's on the wrong side of the ring. Like, he's got to go 75% of the ring, and he's exhausted, and he weighs 280 pounds. Something's going to go wrong. And there he was, landing on his head and almost killing himself. And then the big thing that got canceled from this event was John Cena versus Fabulous in a rap battle that was supposed to happen. This is when John Cena was, when he was doing his raps, and it was just awesome. They were supposed to have the big rap battle. I guess Fabulous
get the F out.
Yeah, got himself into a little bit of legal trouble, and they had to drop it. Unfortunately, I think that would have been that's all the only thing we would have been talking about for sure. No disrespect to Fabulous, because I think
WWE doesn't want to do business with people that are shady. So
but
that wasn't cool.
Two details we forgot.
Yeah.
Two details we forgot: the Hogan Mr. McMahon match. If Hogan had lost, he was going to have to retire. What's funny is he had already been wrestling for like 26 years, which, the dude was like, 57 years old or something. So, the forced retirement in a wrestling match is funny to me.
Take out of my 401k.
Second detail, and why this one ultimately lost, was this is the aforementioned 2 Limp Bizkit song pay-per-view. And that's it. That knocked it out. That's it. That's the end of it.
Before we get into the final 2, this is it. We are here in the finals of
the really?
top WrestleMania of all time. Yeah, I think I did this right. We'll see. We did. Yeah, here we are. Right. But before we do that, we want to let you know we do other things too, like help save you bundles on car insurance. No, we have some music. V-Rap and RJ Gunn music. We put out music. Try to do it every week, sometimes every 2 weeks, depending on how creative we are feeling. But we've had some good music come out. Well, we've had a couple things go viral over on bandlab.com. So keep checking it out. I think our latest song was Way Out, possibly, or Time Heals No Wounds. But check them out. They're very emo titles, but it's good stuff. And then also check out our podcasts on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, anywhere you can get your streaming stuff. So thank you guys for joining us today. We are down to the last 2 WrestleManias. That is WrestleMania 10 versus WrestleMania 17. So let's get into
talk about a little bit about each one.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about we just start with 10 and then head into 17?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's just do talking.
Let's go with 10. I mean, I think RJ, you're probably the most passionate about WrestleMania 10 because this was probably the height of your fandom.
It was not. I'm not that old. No, I didn't even start watching wrestling until 12.
Really?
10, I went back and watched it.
All right.
But no, I do like it. All right, so what do you want to say about 10?
I mean, the opening match, Owen and Bret, fire, right?
Best opener in the history of wrestling.
Yeah, and with nothing on the line either. This wasn't a championship match. There was no title on the line. This was literally just, just blood, family blood.
Yeah, this was basically a way to keep Bret in WWF at the time. So Bret actually, in real life, went and said, "I'm leaving. I'm leaving the company. I might take a year off. I might go to WCW, but I'm out." He wasn't happy. So Vince was basically like, well, "What can we do? You want a match against your brother?" And originally it was against Bruce Hart, and Bret Hart was like, "No, let's do Owen," because Owen was kind of in the mid card, not really doing anything, which they kind of did with him for a very long time. They didn't really do much with him. And this was after the Rumble, where Luger and Bret both went over and hit the floor first.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
terrible Royal Rumble.
Yeah, but it was significant because, again, they listened to the fans. So at the end of the match where they were talking about, and when they were like, "Oh, Lex Luger won. No, Bret won." Bret got the bigger reaction. So that was kind of like, they're like, yeah, he's our guy to be in line for the title. So that was pretty interesting. There's not really much else going on in this pay-per-view except for Michaels and Razor Ramon in the ladder match, which was a fantastic ladder match.
Yeah.
And I believe they actually went over in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was, this was the one where Savage went off on them backstage because this ended up cutting a match. Mm-hmm. So when you get cut from WrestleMania, that means you ain't getting none of this. So I think it was supposed to be a 6-man tag. So you just took away from 6 people's paychecks. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be very well liked backstage. Not like they really cared. So, you had 2 5-star matches. And then you got Bret going into the main event. So he wrestles twice that night.
Yep.
Against Yoko. And I think that was Yoko's second match too, because Yoko faced Lex Luger earlier in the night too. So and Bret wins, and he's basically the face of the company at that point. So,
yeah, that Bret moment to me was an early Daniel Bryan moment. You know, having Bret go out there and be on the shoulders of everybody, and Owen in the background, a great storytelling throughout the night. It wasn't a great match by far. Yokozuna wrestled twice in one night. He could barely wrestle once. Some things I pointed out. First off, Bret and Owen, probably one of the greatest matches in history. Never mind just as an opener or just in WWE. It's a clinic. It's great. Shawn and Razor, their ladder match, they had a second one at SummerSlam later that year, which was awesome. But that was an amazing match. Randy and Crush could have been a really good match. But if you remember, he tried to hang Crush up by his leg in the back to keep him there. And as soon as he hung him up, he fell off. It was so terrible. But it was Randy's last WrestleMania. Something that I noticed, didn't notice it till now. This is the first WrestleMania I enjoyed thoroughly.
Do you know why?
First WrestleMania without Hulk Hogan.
I was going to say that because it was the first one without Hogan.
But anyways, yeah. Anything to add, Mike, about WrestleMania 10?
I mean, we forgot the landmark match of Earthquake versus Atom Bomb that lasted 35 seconds.
I mean, it was an earthquake. It's just quick.
Yeah, it was.
I think Atom Bomb was he replaced, I think, Ludwig Borga, if I'm not mistaken, because he got hurt or something like that, so they threw him in there.
I think this was at a time where they were really trying to figure out what they wanted to do as entertainment industry. You know, when you're following up, you know, an amazing match like Owen and Bret with Bam Bam Bigelow, Luna Vachon versus Dink and Doink in a mixed tag match that somehow ended up lasting over 6 minutes, you know, which was to bridge the gap to, you know, Savage and Crush. Not really sure what they were trying to do. But then, you know, you've got, you know, a great women's match for the championship with Alundra Blaze and Leilani Kai, you know, super technical match. But then again, we go back to Men on a Mission versus the Quebecers. So it was so like up and down, you know, but then you look at the marquee matches and even the guest referees in the marquee matches meant something. So, you know, when we are looking at the Bret Hart Yokozuna, you know, Roddy Piper is your guest referee. Mr. Perfect was there for Yokozuna and Lex Luger. So they knew where to put their stars and how to elevate a match. But at the same time, I think when on this particular pay-per-view, their bottoms were certainly much lower than than probably what we're used to seeing nowadays.
Well, this was right after the steroid scandal that happened too. So they kind of had this shift from, you know, these massive big bodybuilder types, over the top characters into the more technical realm. And they still had those mixed in gimmicks, like Men on a Mission, like super fun gimmick. Not gonna put a 5-star classic, but people like them.
Yeah, I remember enjoying them.
Yeah. I thought they
for sure.
came out rapping, and like here comes Mabel, who's just like, holy crap, this dude is humongous. Like, and he had the cool like hair and everything.
Yeah.
Like, sight to be seen. So yeah, they had a mix of stuff. They were trying to like push Lex into be like the next Hogan. It wasn't working. You know, like he's better as a heel. They tried to, you know, this all-American type guy. He slammed Yoko on the and went on the Lex Express and all this stuff. And
he was certainly a better character as the narcissist for sure.
Yeah, people weren't buying it.
I mean, the true storyline through that entire night was really for Bret.
Yeah,
you know, I think what you said before really kind of nailed it. Where, you know, they were just trying to keep him around, so why not revolve the entire night around the one guy? And I think everyone else felt that way because, you know, when he won the match, you know, you had Luger out there, you had Savage out there, everyone was coming out and hugging him, and congratulating him and really kind of, I think it was a congratulations, but it was more of like a, hey, thanks for sticking around kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I think, if I heard correctly, Randy Savage actually pitched that to kind of do that celebration at the end to put Bret as he's the face of the company now.
Yeah. And he was huge. He's easily one of my favorite, if not my favorite of all time. You know, he is the excellence of execution, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. And he had everything to back that up. He had the character, he had the swagger, he had the technique, you know, and he knew how to guide a match. And he had some of the best.
Once you back that sharpshooter up.
All right, WrestleMania X7 is the other one in our top two here. Again, this came from Houston, Texas. This was the first WrestleMania held in the state of Texas. This was also right after the WCW buyout had happened. So you have Shane McMahon buying WCW, Vince McMahon kind of owning WWE. There's a lot to talk about with X7. So I'll start with a couple of notes I have here. I have like a whole page of notes on X7, but let me start with just like the weird stuff. So the gimmick battle royal was entertaining enough, but the only people I was really excited to see was Duke the Dumpster Drosy, Doink the Clown, and Brother Love. But there was a ton more on there. The Goon was in there. Jim Cornette, Repo Man, the Gobbledygook. So yeah, there was a ton. Michael P.S. Hayes was in there. But there was so many good things. First off, Rock and Austin might arguably be the greatest main event in the history of WrestleMania. It was the one with the heel turn for Austin. The pop for Austin was huge. We have the TLC match, which is probably, again, one of the greatest matches in the history of WWE with that spear off of the ladder hanging on the belt. You have Shane versus Vince. Whether you like it or not, Shane versus Vince was fun. It was a storyline that lasted quite a while. Linda hadn't spoken in weeks or months at that point. She was in the wheelchair, if you remember. Trish Stratus was involved. It was icky. But there was, when Linda gets that nut shot in at the end on Vince, and then Shane hits that Van Terminator, which is ridiculous. It was a fun match. Again, you're not expecting a 5-star when you have Vince and Shane in the ring together, but it was entertaining. But this had 5-star matches. Rock and Austin, Angle and Benoit is probably one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. So there was a ton there. The TLC match obviously was another one. But what do you guys have to say about WrestleMania X7?
Yeah, this had some, I'll talk about some other matches that you didn't talk about. Jericho versus Regal, which Regal's one of my favorites. I forgot how technically sound Regal was. Regal's the technician, man. Like, yeah, he's so good. And at this point, he was the commissioner, which was the dude is hilarious. Like, he can just make a face. And that's all he has to do, but he says funny stuff, besmirched, and so he had a lot of cool stuff going on. Then there was the hardcore match, Raven, Big Show, and Kane. I'm not huge fans of Big Show and Kane. Like, I can take them in small doses, but put them in a hardcore match. It was entertaining. They were all over the place. They threw Raven through a glass window. Yep. Raven actually almost turned out the entire pay-per-view. They almost there was a part where they were on a cart, a golf cart, and it went off to the side. And apparently they told him after, like, you were a quarter inch from hitting a wire that would have turned everything up. Can you imagine that? Raven's just like, oh, shoot. Test versus Eddie Guerrero in the European title match, which Test completely underrated. I love Test. And then Triple H versus Undertaker. Again, two guys that I'm not like, people are like huge fans of Triple H and Undertaker, and I get it. And there's people who don't really care for them either. But I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I'm kind of like whatever. But when they come on, and they have a match against each other, I'm like, I'm gonna watch this because I know it's gonna be good. And they put on a hell of a match. Probably one of my favorites of the night, if not my favorite. even though there was a ridiculous moment where Undertaker drops an elbow on Mike Chioda, and Mike Chioda stays down for over 10 minutes.
Yeah.
This allows Undertaker and Triple H to fight everywhere.
Yeah, they were fighting in the crowd. They were
Undertaker does the big choke slam off the scaffold, which he falls into, a bunch of mattresses, but still it's cool. Like you see him up and then just he's gone. Like I remember seeing that. I was like, that was pretty cool. Yeah, it was actually almost Triple H versus Mike Tyson. They were trying to push that. I guess they did some sort of, I don't know if they did a stare down, I don't know, but they wanted Mike Tyson, Triple H, but they didn't have enough money. There was Tyson's price they weren't willing to pay. Yeah, so a lot of cool stuff on this pay-per-view.
Mike, anything you want to
add? No, I mean, you guys kind of covered everything. I mean, some highlights definitely, Shane putting his dad through the commentary table with the flying elbow was, that was just a ridiculous spot. And Shane just has a spot for just doing dumb stuff to himself for a pop. And that certainly did it. The TLC
man, that helicopter on purpose. Do you remember that?
No.
He legit.
Oh yeah, he survived a helicopter crash. Yeah,
he survived a helicopter crash. Like, so there was a joke like, oh, he's like dropping an elbow from there.
Dude crashed. He literally the helicopter crashed, and Shane just walked out of it.
Yeah, it's like whatever. Yeah. Like that. Steve Blackman hit him off the top. And he did that fall.
It was memes of him like elbowing out of the helicopter. Yeah.
I mean, he had to one up someone getting into a limo and having it explode. So
his father died on TV.
Yeah. I mean, the Stone Cold Rock match for this, and then the subsequent matches that followed. Not so much the one at X8, but leading up to the send off at 19. Rock defending his title against Austin here in the no DQ match was, a pretty substantial chunk of this pay-per-view. The longest match of the night at 28 minutes. But it didn't feel, going, at least watching highlights now, obviously they're edited, but still didn't feel like a 28-minute match. Like like a 28-minute match would feel like, all right, I get it. Like, all right, come on, keep it moving. Like, these two have the energy. And I don't mean like energy, but like an aura about them that keep you watching, and that certainly, put a cap on this entire thing. But again, but again, going back to the other matches, Angle, Benoit, one of my all-time favorites as well. Just ridiculously talented. Kurt Angle, super talented. And just watching those two, like, put on a technical match, with everything you can think of, just, not just holds and high flying, but just, just good spots, good match all around. And
the tickle fight.
Yeah, tickle fights were there. And the TLC. You can't go wrong with the TLC match with that kind of lineup. The Dudleys, the Hardys, Edge and Christian, Rhino was there because someone's got to get speared. So
they should do 3 stages of hell, like 2 like big dudes, and like first one should be like tickle fight. The second match should be like a floor fight, and the third one like a Hell in a Cell. Just go to like next extreme.
But actually in hell.
Yeah.
So we have WrestleMania. We have WrestleMania X7 versus WrestleMania 10. What is your vote, guys? This is it.
17, all the way. Even WWE said it in 2013. They named this their best WrestleMania ever, and I agree with them.
Yeah, I have to say this might be one of the better wrestling pay-per-views in the history of the whole business. If you think about it, there really wasn't a ridiculously terrible match on the card. I mean, you had China and Ivory, but it was pretty short. You didn't have to sit through a 20-minute match with them. Even the beginning, we didn't talk about it, but X Factor was in the pre-show, and I loved X Factor. Like, they weren't very big, but they were cool. X-Pac and Just Incredible defeated Grandmaster Sexay and Steve Blackman. But that was on the pre-show. Everything after that, you had 8 or 9 amazing matches on one pay-per-view. Even Taz and the APA defeating the Right to Censor wasn't a clinic or anything, but it was entertaining enough. It doesn't hurt when you have that many good matches on a card. So at this point, I'm going to agree, and I think WrestleMania X7 is going to be the best pay-per-view, best WrestleMania of all time.
I would agree as well.
Well, dang.
That's it. We're here. All three of us have agreed on this. So if you're going to go back and watch any of these, you can watch all 8 if you want to on the WWE Network. But WrestleMania 17, we're deciding, is the top WrestleMania to watch. But as you can tell, there were a ton of great matches out of all the other ones as well. And there were plenty of other WrestleManias as well that have great matches that just didn't make the card. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I don't want to keep you too much longer. We're hitting our mark here, but thank you guys for joining us. Feel free to reach out on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. Feel free to comment, subscribe on Spotify to get our episodes. But we thank you guys for watching it, and y'all have a good night.
Yeah, y'all.